Hey folks, thank you for stopping by Kaiser's Castle. Today we're going to start out, I've got Baz with me, which is always awesome. I can never have a thought without a show with him that we have not had an awesome show. And I'm going to start out with the Second Amendment. First, I have to give a shout out, not just for myself, but for Axion Ghost. He had a subscriber who, that's his music, it's game time, and of course will remain a fact. Peace is always the ideal. He got a new subscriber, Jermaine, who's a brother of mine from Germany. So thank you, Jermaine. I'm giving you a public shout out. And if you guys want to look at Jermaine's site, it's Jermaine's Arminius. And I think you guys will enjoy that. Now, with the Second Amendment, it's very basic. I'll read it dry, but I will read you the best interpretation anybody has ever had, okay? Not me, the other person, okay? The Second Amendment of the United States Constitution reads, a well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed, end quote, for the Second Amendment, okay? Now, when I play this, you're going to hear a liberal first try to juxtapose, slice things up, try to say, it doesn't mean what they say it means. That's what they normally do. Let me rephrase that. It's not a liberal. It is a progressive. I've got to be very clear because both me and Baz are classical Jeffersonian liberals. He's a liberal from the English side, a little different, but not a liberal like a progressive, like what's destroying England now. He's an open-minded person. That's what liberal used to mean. I guess I'm speaking for you, Baz. When I bring you in, please correct me on the way I think, but I don't think I do. We've known each other too long. But this is going to be from Penn and Teller. They had an epic show on gun control. And I'm going to play it right now just so you guys can hear exactly what I consider the best show ever done on gun control, and it was Penn and Teller's bullshit, okay? And it was about gun control, and you guys look it up and watch it, because it was just a beautiful thing to behold.
So what does the Second Amendment actually say? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's it. Not a lot of words, just very specific ones.
It means that the states have the right to have a well-regulated militia. And a 20-year-old kid carrying an assault weapon on the streets of downtown America has absolutely nothing to do with a well-regulated militia.
Well, no. Read the words. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Sure, you need an organized military force to defend your country, but the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the people, in contrast with the militia. It doesn't say the right of the militia to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It says the right of the people. Now, why the word people? Because the people who wrote this had just fought a war for 2 years against a tyrannical state militia. They knew the time might come when they'd have to do that again. So they made the possession of weapons a right that the militia could never take away. Now, gun control advocates say the phrasing is clumsy, and the comma separating the state from the people is just a pause to get your breath. Strange, they can't seem to point out any other places where those hack framers fucked up the wording. So what does
now notice, the interesting part is, they don't quibble about anything else. And Baz is going to jump in here in a second because he has free reign to. And yes, it was, he's an Englishman who I respect. And I love every Englishman. I love everybody I've worked for, my Germans, all my brothers that I know. But he still, Red Lives Matter. I get it from the Revolutionary War. It's a meme he posts, yet I don't post it. I did on a couple of our shows. You guys can go back and look at them. But the point being is, the more important point is that as English speaking people, German speaking people, Dutch speaking people, people who actually do try to have freedom, we all understand certain things. And with that being said, Baz, thank you for coming on. I know you guys don't have a Second Amendment. That does not make a fuck shit to me. What matters is you tell them the reality of your second, quote unquote, Second Amendment, your allowances on your side of the pond.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, brother. It's always a pleasure to be on that big orange couch. Yeah, it's a misconception that firearms are quote unquote illegal in the United Kingdom. That's not the case at all. They're regulated, a lot more regulated than the States, but a lot less regulated than other countries around the world. You can own a firearm in the United Kingdom. What you need is what's called a firearm certificate, or people like throwing the world around license. It's not a license as such. It's a firearm certificate. It means that you've had your background checked by the police, and basically you've been deemed socially responsible enough. And what I mean by that is you don't have a criminal record. You're an ex-bank robber, or you always up for abuse or assault, violent crimes and things like that. So basically, it's a certificate to say that you are basically being checked by the police. Now, our regulations are, again, a lot different from yours, depending on what state you live out in the US. But we have some laws that I know some of my friends over there that are quite envious of. For example, we can carry short barrel shotguns. Now, what I'll say by that is I don't mean sawn off, but short barrel shotguns a lot shorter than you can in some states in the US. Also, some short barrel rifles as well.
Yes.
It's not a difficult thing to get hold of. Is a firearm certificate. It's not like this. You've got to shoot through 100 hoops. Basically, you apply normally through the post office. You send off this form. It goes to your local constabulary, the police force in your area, and one of their firearms officers will basically come and all he'll do is just come and visit your home. And it's not, it's not opening drawers or anything like that. He's coming to speak to you, and then he'll ask you where you're going to keep your firearms, because, again, the most important thing when you've got firearms in a private residence is the safety and security of those firearms, especially if you've got family, even more if you've got small children or young people around your home. So basically they say, where's it going to be kept? You say, okay, it's going to be here. He'll give you tips or hints, or he'll say, okay, no, you can't have it there. But what I would do is have it here. It has to be bolted to a supporting wall. What I mean by that is solid brick wall onto the floor, so it can't be stolen. The types of weapons you can have, we can have bolt action anti-material, 50 cal anti-material rifles if we so wish. We can have shotguns. What we cannot own is semi-automatic pistols, but we can own revolvers of any caliber. So I can have a 357 Taurus.
Or the classic, the British invention, the 44 Bulldog, which was a 5-shot revolver, and it was carried by your wardens, your air wardens, during the Second World War, and those are still perfectly legal.
Yeah. It's some rifles, some semi-automatic rifles are not permitted unless there's sort of certain circumstances. Semi-automatic pistols like the Glock, the SIG, 1911s, not in the mainland UK, but you can obtain those in places like Northern Ireland and things like that, where the laws are a bit different. So there is a vast raft of firearms you can actually own legally in the UK. And as a sort of a postscript note to that, again, what I do see a lot of on social media is when they're saying, "Oh, they've banned knives. What you got to do now to butter your bread because you can't even own a knife?" It's absolute fucking bollocks. I'll say that. That's from the horse's mouth. Knives are not illegal in the UK. I'll just put that one out there. You can have knives. Many people have got collections of knives and swords and medieval weaponry, and there's nothing wrong with having those. Carrying knives again isn't against the law. What is against the law is carrying a knife. You've got there's intricacies in the laws over here, as there is anywhere. Young male in South London, for example, of a certain demographic, and he's got a Rambo knife on him. He's not carrying that for a purpose that has good intentions. You know what I mean? He's carrying that knife to stick in another young man of the similar age and probably the same demographic, you know, because of the massive sort of gang culture. It's the same as if, let's say, in Compton or in Hoover in South Central Los Angeles, if a LAPD police officer pulls over a young gangbanger or a young black male, for example, or a young Hispanic male or a young white male in that area, and then they've got that weapon on him, registered or unregistered, what's it going to be used for?
Marked up with tattoos. I mean, everybody knows what they're up to. They're doing something nefarious. Yeah, no, and that makes logical sense. The good thing that you have is it sounds like it's a little less than, like I live in Ohio. I can carry a knife in my pocket as long as there's a clip. It kind of shows. When I was a union iron worker, I carried an Air Force survival knife. Still have it on my hip because it was a great knife to cut rope. That's fact. And it still is a good knife. It's a tool. It's a tool, period. That's how we all look at knives. But in Ohio, if unless you're a one-armed man, you can't have a stiletto, you can't have a switchblade. You definitely aren't going to carry a hatchet, even though I did for a long time, and my son now has Iron Fang. But I mostly carried and I still have it. I have a tomahawk, and it's an American thing. And I'm a big advocate of blade rights. I used to think when we didn't have concealed carry, which I have one, at this point I still have one until I'm actually thinking about giving it up. I'm actually thinking about politically donating my time more to getting bladed weapons. There is no reason why. Look, every police officer, every civilian would see you with a piece of iron on your hip. And to me, that makes more sense. Not more sense. I think open carry is better than concealed carry, but I also see the denigration to where concealed carry doesn't, it sort of lets the bad guy think, oh man, everybody might be carrying in here. But the greater point is, if they see an open carried gun, they see an open carried knife or whatever Sharpie, people are going to think twice about being stupid. And I do believe, you know, we haven't really progressed much further than the 1800s. As much as all these lefties want to, and honestly, I want you to speak, if I misspoke, that you're a classical liberal, meaning a Jeffersonian liberal, where you're able to protect the Constitution and the Second Amendment and all the amendments. I believe you're that kind of guy, but if I'm wrong, please let the people know.
No, you bang on. You bang on. I sit politically slap bang in the centre. Both sides I take notice of. Both sides I decide to ignore. You know, I'm very much a free person. You know, I have my own beliefs, my own thoughts. I don't need to vote for people to make those decisions for me, you know. Either way, both your country and my country are in the shitter. Let's be honest. Politically, we've just been run and governed on both sides by absolute fucking imbeciles.
No,
not all, but the majority, you know.
You are totally right, and here's why I'll say this. This is what boggles my mind when people will hear this. It's not just they're imbeciles. They honestly don't even know how guns work. Remember that guy saying assault weapons. Well, you and
a 30-round magazine clip.
Yeah. It's all bullshit, because an assault weapon, by definition, is one that you can click to fully auto. Now, we have a tax stamp that is outrageous, and then the guns that can do that and make machine gun fire, which are useless. You and I both know this. I think we had a show on this a few months back. How many times have either of us in combat or even in training? And training, I think, was the majority. I think we both came to the same opinion. Training was the majority, and we clicked to fully automatic fire or burst fire, whatever these people want to claim it, which is the definition of assault weapon, in one hand. Five. And I think maybe I've done it twice in combat, 3 times in training. It's just a waste of bullets. You can't guarantee where the rounds go, and nobody who's a professional clicks the automatic fire. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, as my base trade, a thoroughbred infantryman, the only time you are really clicking to automatic is when you're basically clearing a position. That's you're charging over the top of a position, emptying a magazine into something, and then sticking it with your bayonet. The days of doing that are pretty much gone,
Or
even
a final protective fire where you have it at grazing fire.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've never had to switch to that. Your thoughts?
even like say the height of Afghanistan, I'm talking personal weapons now. I'm not talking obviously heavy machine guns or light machine guns where their base fire is an automatic weapon. You know what I mean? That's why it's a machine gun. But a rifle, assault rifle, personal weapon, whatever you want to call it this week, the chances are you're flicking to automatic are pretty slim. There's not many infantrymen I've known that are in an attack that start putting automatic rounds down. It's always 1 to 2 rounds every few seconds. You know what I mean? That's trying to win a firefight. Once it becomes deliberate fire, it's 1 round every 5 or 6 seconds. You're not blazing rounds on. It's not fucking Vietnam. You know what I mean? We saw from the case studies of Vietnam how many rounds it'd take to kill 1 Vietnamese or 1 Viet Cong, and it was something like every 22,000 rounds expended would class for 1 enemy casualty. Now that's not a fatality, that's a casualty. 22,000 rounds. Right. Consider the average infantryman when he goes in on operations or on patrol has round about 300 rounds of ammunition. That's a lot of magazines. You know what I mean? Consider a magazine only holds 30 rounds. If you're rocking the Colt magazines, and it was 28 rounds, but nowadays it's usually the P mags or something like that, where it's a 30 round magazine. That's 10 magazines. 10 magazines is a lot of weight to be carrying around. You know what I mean? So it varied between 6 and 8 magazines I used to carry around, depending on what role I was in. If I was in a vehicle, then I could carry a lot more ammunition. But if I was in a vehicle, chances are it was one of our mobility warfare vehicles, I had a lot more weapon systems on me before I even went to my personal weapon. And to be honest, there was times I skipped my primary. I went straight to the pistol because I used to carry my pistol on my chest carry, on the front of my armour. Because it was just a lot easier to go for my pistol.
Yep.
And engage targets close up when I couldn't engage them with the what you call the 240, the GPMG in the front of my vehicle. It was if I can't engage somebody with that, then I was going to my pistol. There was no reason to go for my rifle. So again, it depends on what you're doing, is how much ammunition you carry, but you still can't afford to be going fucking fully automatic everywhere purely because you don't know how long you're going to be in that fight. Yeah,
exactly.
You could be in that fight. You could be in that fight for 3 minutes. You could be in that fight for 3 hours. Where it gets to the point where you're thinking, okay, I've burned through 5 magazines. I've got 3 magazines left, and we're still 200 meters away from the enemy and advances towards them. At some point, you need to go, okay, I need to start putting 1 round down every 10 seconds now, purely because ammunition conservation. You need to start teaming up with your teammates, seeing what their rate of fire is. So obviously I'm digressing massively now. I'm going far too much into this.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Because I'll tell you, you and I both know from experience, the average firefight's 30 seconds. And if you get into a protracted one, that means you hit the beehive. And other things are going to be thrown that way. Artillery, BMG, a whole lot more than what you're dealing with at that moment. And you're also going to be using, in a war zone, quote unquote, you're going to be using rockets like Law 70, or not 72s because they're outdated. There's still some out there. But the Law 85s, you're going to be hitting with
Charlie G.
Yep. Go on.
Yeah, so, but like you said there, the average firefight, you're looking at 30 seconds. Now, we're going to put it in sort of like, let's take out that kinetic theatre of operations like the war zone. An automatic weapon is pretty much useless in the hands, and I'm going to say it, of an everyday American. Because when are you going to need to go to automatic? If you're pulling out an AR-15 or something like that, and you need to put rounds down, the chances are those rounds going down range at your target are going to give them, a wake-up call. I know if I'm on the end...
Accurately.
Accurately round, punching into my position, my cover, my concealment, whatever I'm standing behind, if I'm lucky enough, I'm going to have second thoughts. I'm not going to stick my head above the parapet with my Glock on the side doing LA gangbanger Hollywood shooting at you. There's 5.56, 7.62, 300 blackout, whatever you're firing at me, blowing bits of cover away from me. I'm thinking, fuck this is game over. You won't need to go fully automatic because solid, accurate rounds are a lot better than wild automatic fire peppering the area 50 feet around me, And you've got to think as well.
And killing innocents. That's the whole thing. They just get lost in the sauce thinking police and military. We just want to kill innocent people. It's bullshit, and you and I both know it, and that's the kind of shit the media sells.
Yeah. And what else you've got to think is the level of training that person's had to get their hands on that rifle. You can go to Chris Costa's fucking Costa Ludos or whatever you want and fire rounds down at a paper target 6 months of the year, 12 hours a day. That doesn't matter one iota. When there's rounds cracking past your head and it's life or death, a lot of that, 90% of that shit will go out the window. And you're relying now on your central cortex, your fight or flight, and it's only muscle memory of you bringing that weapon up and putting rounds down. That's going to keep you alive.
And gross motor skills. Everything goes to your core. The blood, it's something I can't explain, but the blood goes away from your phalanges. Everything's gross. Working with an AK and an AR, whatever, that's why we've developed the gunfighter things for the AR-15, M16, whatever you guys want to call it, the M4, whatever model, the XM177. I mean, we both go back to the days of that, folks. But the AK has always been, right hand never leaves. If you're left-handed and you're holding that grip with your right hand, your left hand, that pinky is going to swipe, but you don't train with the pinky. You train with the middle of your palm to push that back. You dump with the thumb. Very simple to dump that mag, and then you rock a new one in on an AK. I mean, it's just so much bullshit the media puts out, but this is the things that nobody talks about, and that's what we do cover on this show. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you're totally right. It's that base memory of thousands of hours of training and carrying that weapon, not just to and from the range, but carrying that weapon as an appendage, as an extra extension of your body that only law enforcement, soldiers, Marines get to do on a daily basis, where you go for a shit, that weapon goes with you. You sit down, you pull down your trousers, your bottoms, and that rifle sits on top of your foot. So when you fucking finish up and you wipe your ass and you pull your pants up, you don't walk off without it. It's because it's a part of you. If you walked out that cubicle after having a dump, you automatically feel naked because there's something missing, and it's your weapon system. And it's only that type of sort of muscle memory and that experience that is going to keep you alive. There's a lot of people that do a lot of good things, stopping active shooters and things like that. And a lot of it is because the active shooter themselves is generally an untrained person that's gone off reservation and is going on a rampage, killing or attempting to kill people. And it's that met with force that, first of all, there's a barrel of a weapon pointing at them. And it's that, okay, my barrel of my weapon's pointing at the floor. They've got a weapon pointing at my head. I'm going to lose this Mexican standoff. So it's a lot of deterrence. Or even if it's an open carry state or an open carry sort of area that you're in, again, that's a deterrent. Are you going to start pulling a pistol out when there's 15 people around you carrying theirs as well, with all the tactical gear on and things like that? Because the chances are they have trained to a certain extent.
The shit just got real.
And I know there's people out there that have never been in the military or never been a law enforcement officer, are highly proficient with firearms, and may have in the past have come under effective fire for themselves or been in a situation where it has been that fight or flight and their life has been at risk and they've drawn down and they've done the job. It goes on individuals as well. But coming back to it is the Second Amendment thing that you've started on is it's precious to the US, and let's be honest, if everybody in the US woke up tomorrow and you had a completely democratic government, as in the Democrats, and all these red laws came in, it was now illegal to own a firearm in the US, you really think that 350 million people are going to, well, I'll say 350 million people, but a large swathe of the US population are going to go, okay, then, here's my firearms. It'll never happen. And if I was a US citizen, and I've banged on about it a lot of times.
Even as an English citizen, are you going to give up if you were to have anything, would you give up what you had? No.
If someone came to me and said, you need to give up your firearms, I'd be like, how about you fuck off?
Right.
I don't need you telling me that I can't own firearms for no reason than to stop crime. Because you could take, and I've had this conversation with friends at work who are also registered firearms owners, that you could take all the firearms out of every registered firearm owner in the United States, and it's not going to change one iota. There's still going to be gun deaths every year. There's still going to be armed robberies, still going to be crime. It's not easy to get a firearm over here. Okay, legally.
Well, the last shooting we just had in Philadelphia, I don't know if you saw it. 6 cops injured. Besides everybody going after, the police because of the area it was in. But the funny part is, that guy he had as long as your leg, not as long as your arm, as long as your leg was his rap sheet. And it's a failure of the justice system from putting him away. But the problem is, he's still out there. And so you have to send police in to handle him, who is debarred the use of firearms because he's a felon. And yet, he still somehow got some. Figure that one out.
Like I say, it's a lot easier, especially I'm talking about the UK now, it's a lot easier in the UK to get a firearm illegally than it is to get one legally. And
wow.
Notionally, I can make 2 phone calls now and probably get a firearm, an illegal firearm. through
Wow.
contacts, through the military, and just people I know. It's easier to get a firearm illegally, more more easy to get a firearm illegally than it is legally in the UK. But I would dare say it would probably be the same in some areas in the States, especially in some of the areas where gun control is pretty high on the agenda. Places like
Yes,
California, places like
exactly.
New York State, places like that where the carriage of firearms. If you got caught, if you were walking around New York City with a firearm, for example, I guarantee you'd be at gunpoint in very few minutes. You know, it's I'm talking. I'm talking.
Whereas in Alaska, or not, and Arizona,
Yeah,
even Vegas, there's
yeah.
open carry, right?
Yeah.
Ohio has open carry. The only difference is we're so close to the East Coast that if you're in a city, they're going to stop you and say, "Why you got that gun on your hip?" And
Mm.
then they can arrest you for menacing. I mean, that's a big difference. And it's the same thing with a knife. I've had the police. This is funny. I was a Fed at that time. I had the police stop me, and I was just going shopping, but I had a long bladed knife on my hip. You know, a regular kind of buck knife, nothing major, and nothing in the pocket, but it was on my hip on the belt and exposed. And people got, oh my God, I'm scared because he has a knife on his hip. Really? If I were to do something stupid, everybody already knows. Probably the police have been called, and I guarantee you right now, they showed up as I was walking out the door with my purchase. And it was just because I had it on my hip.
Yeah. It's again, it's a society we live in as well, and how people view weapons, either firearms or bladed weapons. You know, for example, because of the regulation of firearms over here, you're less likely to. If I was a criminal, I would be less likely to have a firearm pulled into my face if I was up to nefarious deeds against a private citizen. So the onus is very much on the criminal. They've got the upper hand a lot of the times because again they don't care if they've got a firearm, if they've got a fucking machete stuffed down their back. The chances are any private citizen that you're going to commit a crime against, chances are they're going to be unarmed. You know, so you have a lot of private citizens carrying other things like a baseball bat in the car, and the way our police forces run now, it's very PC, very liberal, sort of, you know,
Well, in
go for the easy arrests, rather than chase these hardline criminals or these Islamic fanatics or whatever. They'll easily stop a guy who's got a Leatherman's, on him and say,
yes,
"Why are you carrying that around? Leave me alone. I've got a Leatherman's for a reason. If I wanted to go on a fucking stabbing rampage, I won't be carrying
you
around a
wouldn't be carrying
multi-tool."
a fucking multi tool.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's even funnier than that, brother. Um, as a Fed, I got pulled over by the Highway Patrol in Ohio. I'm not bullshitting you a bit. And hands on the steering wheel. This is before we had a concealed carry, by the way. And I'd be like, credentials in my gun are over there. One time, I just got done working out, coming home, in shorts and a tank top. I have my gun under my leg, hands on the steering wheel. Highway Patrol, both times, same reaction. Barney Fife, that's a thing in America. I don't know if you've ever seen the Anna Griffith Show. Barney pulls his gun on me both times when I said my credentials and gun are in the glove box the first time. The second one is my credentials are in the glove box, hands are on the steering wheel, and my gun's under my right hip because that's how they pull you over. They come to your right side. And both times they pull their guns out and they're like, and I'm like, okay, Barney, listen to me. credentials are in my glove box. I'm not going to move. If you want to take the second time, I was like, the gun's under my hip in the shorts. You can see it. You've got your light looking right at it. I'm not going to move. Take the gun. We're good. And the same thing with concealed carry. What they don't want to tell you is concealed carry, the government, the state government at least, knows you have a concealed carry permit. There's a big screen that pops up in every 50 state if they have a concealed carry. It says this guy has a concealed carry. And in all honesty, except for the Highway Patrol in Ohio, for some reason, because they're odd, and or their beliefs, whatever, it's an indoctrination thing. That person went through all the hoops to get a concealed carry. Now, if somebody's a federal cop and he's saying my credentials are there, to still overreact is moronic. And I've seen it numerous times. One time, a matter of fact, there's a third time, I witnessed a fucking automobile accident. Cop shows up, show him my credentials. He snatches out of my hand like he's whatever. And puts me in the back of the car after he takes the gun out of my hip. No resistance. This is before we actually had concealed carry. And he calls his agency and he's like, so why you got a gun on you? I'm like, because I'm a cop. And he's like, oh, well, what's the number? And I gave him the number, and they said, yeah, he's a cop. And he's like, why are you carrying your gun on your hip? I was going to work. There's so much bullshit that nobody sees, the minutia, that these unregulated, non-standardized laws create that could create a blue-on-blue shooting, a cop shooting another cop for no fucking reason. I want to give you the final word on this, and then we're going to switch to the shadow government and how it equals the deep state. Is that good, or do you need more time?
No, that's good, brother. That's good, yeah. The laws, it's strange. Like, say, over here, where I'm from, it's sort of quite a rural area. So if you see people walking around with a shotgun or a hunting rifle, the chances are they aren't going to do a bank job or they aren't going to start shooting people in the head, And the police officers around here are pretty used to seeing people with firearms. Where now you take that and you put that in central London, or Birmingham or somewhere like that, and all of a sudden there's someone walking around with a hunting rifle. Guess what? The chances are you're going to be on the receiving end of some tactical firearms officers pointing some high-velocity weapon systems at you, wanting to know why you're walking around with a hunting rifle in public in the middle of a city, But it would be the same anyway, If I was walking around sort of like Times Square with a shotgun over my back, the chances are I'd have the NYPD asking me a lot of questions, probably at gunpoint, So again, it's that common sense as well. It's just that in some places, common sense is sort of the rule, where in some other places that's not the case. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But yeah, it's the Second Amendment it's a part of what is the DNA of being an American citizen. Your First Amendment, Second Amendment, and obviously etc. But a Second Amendment it's a very contentious sort of subject over there, and it's those that carry weapon systems on them. I don't care what it is, whether it's a 22 Ruger, whether it's a 357 Python, whether it's an AR-15, a Glock 9mm, whatever. You've got it for a reason. And 99.9% of gun owners in America are carrying it for the defense of themselves and, more importantly, the defense of their families and homesteads. And
exactly.
That should never be infringed because of such the gun culture now that is the United States. Disarming the average citizen, you'll see crime spike through the roof. And then you'll just see a lot more people getting stabbed.
We saw it in this. We saw it in the 70s, and I'm going to lay the last word, but we saw it in the 70s. And the most relaxed I've ever been, I'll never forget it. I was able to carry a gun in Arizona. I was able to carry a gun in Southern Ohio. And I had my gun, concealed, whatever. And down there, somebody has a hog leg 6-shooter or a Glock on their hip going into a bank. The bank does their service for them. No problem. New Mexico, same way. I've seen it. You do that in California, do that in Ohio, in the cities, you're going to have an issue. But all you're doing is doing a transaction. And it's that ridiculous of... that's what I mean. There needs to be a standardization nationally on that. Because if you're checked out here, you should be checked out everywhere. But everybody has to have their own fiefdoms. And go on, brother.
Yeah, again, like what goes down in Nevada isn't the same for California. One state's a Republican state, one state's a Democratic state. So, it's whatever you're going to do in one state and you try and transfer it to the other, there's going to be people who get sand in the cunts, and I don't think it'll ever happen. There should be a national database, that's accessible to all police forces of every county, every jurisdiction, both municipal police or city police or state police or highway patrol, whatever, that states this person is a registered firearms owner, and they have a concealed carry or an open, whatever, And what does it matter that you walk into a bank with a Springfield 1911 on your hip or a Springfield 1911 in a pancake coaster on your back that no one can see? The fact is, you're still carrying a firearm. It doesn't make one iota of difference. If you're going into that bank with nefarious notions, you're going to do it anyway, And the chances are it's not going to be in a holster anyway. They're going to come through the door with it in the fucking hand, But again, I think we've touched on that to the extreme, brother. So I think we'll move on that. What do you think?
Oh, I think that's clear. I think the Nevada's the only one that you threw that was a fastball, which is a Democratic state at this point, with Sinema in office and other folks. But they still have open carry. Yeah. But it's still within the city limits of Vegas. Trying to think of the other town I used to go to. Probably Lake Tahoe, and probably the other. It used to have the Mustang Ranch there, Reno Casino. It's probably more like Ohio, I think, but I think the police don't act as moronic as most, but. My point being is, let's move on. Let's drive to the shadow government, going all the way back to, and you may not know about him, and if you don't, I'll send you some links. Art Bell and another guy, Clyde Lewis, I think his name was, during stakeouts and stuff when I was fed back in the day. I was able to listen to these guys, and they started talking about the shadow government. They had all these emblems and shit. I'm not putting that shit up there. I was going to, but it's just not going to happen. Now, we'll put up, when it's a small world and too many fuckers in it. That old meme from the PHU. I'll throw that up there. But in all honesty, that's not the reality of it. The point is, shadow government has always existed. And then they came up with this new word, the deep state. And we both know from both sides of the pond, I want your experience to tell people what the deep state is on your side, because I was joking around. I know GHQ and all that stuff. But I I want you to explain to people how that works on your side of the pond, and then I'll explain it on my side of the pond.
Yeah, well, obviously, shadow governments, deep state, have been around since Jesus, since the Romans were cutting about. Um,
Yep.
I think in this day and age, in this sort of like cyber age now, where all information is at the touch of your finger, the realms or sort of the margin between normal society and deep state is a lot closer and a lot smaller than it was, purely because of whistleblowers, of the internet, of surveillance on both sides from the private citizen and the government slash deep state. And it is out there. There is elements of the deep state, like an iceberg, that are there in plain sight. And all you've got to look at is, like you mentioned earlier, you've got the NSA, you've got over here, we've got the GCHQ. We've got a place called Menworth Hill, not far from where actually I was born and brought up, on the Yorkshire Moors, which is the largest NSA listening station outside of the US. The place is absolutely huge, and obviously there it's sort of a
massive with antennas and satellite dishes.
The works, it's antennas, satellite dishes, the big golf balls. It's just a huge listening station.
Yep.
And it's a joint operation between obviously GCHQ, the British government, MI5, MI6, the CIA, NSA, and it's
Five Eyes.
It's there in broad daylight. You know, that runs what used to be called the echelon system.
Which
again,
became carnivore. We all know the systems, bro.
Yeah. So yeah, and obviously within that you've got certain elements of foreign governments attached to it as well. The Australians, the New Zealand, the French, the Germans, the Dutch. You know, everybody's involved in it, but your deep state government, they're the ones that call the shots without calling the shots, if you know what I mean. And we certainly do see it over here at times. And there's elements of it. People say the royals involved and all this stuff, and that's just ridiculous. You know, it's just ridiculous. But there is elements that work for and against your ruling government, if you know what I mean. I mean, what do you think on that?
Well, I think I'm pretty clear on this. I don't think the actual rulers know what they're doing. Honestly, I've seen the incompetence of the federal government and the incompetence of rulers, quote unquote rulers. What I have noticed is they have that plausible deniability built in. And if you see something different on your end of the pond, please bring it up, because they don't want to know. They honestly don't want to know. Yeah, remember that old song, "I'm a fool to do your dirty work"? Oh, yeah, get in the shower, bro, because I'm about to sing it. Oh, yeah. From Steely Dan. It's the same thing, man. I mean, you and I have both done several things in our lifetime that were, well, our government didn't care, but obviously, you know, others might. And it's still dirty work. Your thoughts?
Yeah, where you're working and whatever you're doing, there's usually what I'll say a puppet master. There's someone pulling the strings behind the scenes, be that clean government or be that deep state. It could be a hybrid mix of the two. The chances are, if it is a mix of the two, then the clean government have not a clue who else is behind the scenes, in the shadows, whatever you want to call it. But it is apparent at some point in your life, in our circles, where you think to yourself, what I'm doing now, this job I'm doing, or what this mission I'm on, or this task I'm running, isn't what it seems to be, you know. And it's all that need to know bollocks, you know. When we, like, for example, when we all rolled into Iraq in 2003, we were there for weapons of mass destruction.
Yep.
Anybody with two brain cells to rub together knew that it was nothing to do with weapons of mass destruction. It was because of oil. You know,
same with 90 and 91 for the first Gulf War. Just to step in for a second, I believed in it until I saw certain things that were a reality. And Harold or Gerald Bull, different things that I've talked with you about offline. I said this in my last thing. I'm going to speak about something that I do know of. Several things. First off, I'm going to speak on, and I want to have my sergeant on. I'm just going to call him Sergeant Rick. Will never say his last name or his real first name. But what I will say is he was there when the Jebel incident happened, which, believe it or not, the Brits talked about in their trades way before the U.S. did. And that was an actual chemical agent that hit Ras Al Jebel. And the other thing that I'll talk about is Gerald Bull. They always say there was an assassination, and it's in his little show, and it says it was an assassination done by Mossad and multi-people. It wasn't. That's all I'll say, other than it was one person who turned his lights out. And everything else about Brussels, I won't talk on, but there's so much bullshit out there, man, that... And we've actually become, I do believe this, a slave to the internet and believing what WikiLeaks and all these other places talk about. Because the truth is so far removed. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and like I mentioned on our last show, brother, it's there's so much shit out there, and you can see we can put our shiny tinfoil hats on, but you throw some shit at the wall, somebody's gonna stick, and it's the same with, like I mentioned, like the last show I've just said there, with the internet. There's so much information and misinformation out there. It's so clouded. What is right, what is wrong? Chances are, if you look at one subject and you sit on the internet for an entire 12 hours looking at it, at one point of the day, you're going to stumble across the truth, but you won't know it's a truth because it's just surrounded by so much shit, so many different narratives. And that's what governments do nowadays. They will actively promote people doing this. We know there's people do it as a career. Misinformation for said governments.
Shit, we both done it. I mean,
Yeah.
Honestly, let's be honest. We have both helped provide the narrative on both sides of this pond. And that's the whole difference. When I say we, I'm talking about English. I'm not calling you out. I'm saying both of us and I'm not calling myself out. We both built narratives to get our people into war instead of into peace. And here's the difference. An actual guy on the ground does not enjoy that because we get to suffer from the bullshit that gets created, even if we did it, right?
Yeah, certainly. And it's a soldier wants to usually go there and do his job. He wants to go there and he wants to just be pointed in the right direction and say, sick 'em, but to be sold these lies, well, we're going to go away and we're going to do this. So you go out there with the expectation of being able to get out there and do your job and then be told, actually, but don't say anything. We want you to go out there and look pretty for the cameras, but we don't actually want you to do X, Y, and Z because we don't want that publicity, And it's that creates the problem. And when we say that, all you've got to do is look at the sort of the semi-deep state stuff that was happening back in the Afghanistan conflict where the Russians invaded and we were arming the Mujahideen.
Yep.
Which then became the Taliban, Northern Alliance, Haqqani Network, fucking whatever 2-bit outfit running with nowadays,
General Dostum, who ran for president.
Yeah. And then you can
I met him. He's actually a decent dude. That's what's so fucked up about this whole scene.
Yeah, it's they're friends one day, enemies the next, and you see then 4 or 5 generations down, where we're rocking up to places like Syria, like Libya, certain places in Africa, where we're still seeing the same bullshit, we're still seeing the same fighters, we're still seeing the same MO, because of the shit that's gone on. Because we've been pointed in the direction, we've been told to carry out a task, but we've not been given the freedom to carry out that task to completion. You know, look at Vietnam. You know, take the fucking reins off. What happened with Vietnam was shocking. You know what I mean? The guys are out there doing the job. All those lives lost for what? When the US came out of Vietnam, and there was that sort of that treaty signed, it was just swept under. Now, obviously, certain elements of your government wanted to get back in there and finish the job, and it was just that we don't want to do it. It was public attitude, public hunger for war, and again, that's what we see nowadays. And now, all you've got to look at now is this Iranian issue. You know, there's something at play there, massively. Why aren't we in there dusting them? Because, let's be honest, Iraq didn't do anything like that, you know. And we went there and bulldozed the fucking place, you know. And the Iranians are getting away with so much. It's
what I always call the intelligence, and it's Operation Mockingbird. You know what I'm talking about. It's the intelligence, academia, and you have the media complex. And notice when I was about to say something about Bush, but I don't want to because it's not relevant. When Trump first wanted to push for war with the Iranians, everybody on the left, all of a sudden it's where the neocons and what I call the neo-progs, which are the neo-progressives, when they all jumped on that joy train and said, oh, finally, Trump's acting presidential. No. He got pulled back into center and realized, no, a drone is not worth 150 lives. And look, if there's a time he has to push the button and start the world on fire, I hope he has the same advisors, the same people that will pull him back in and say, maybe this isn't the best deal. But if he knows things are incoming to your and my country, I hope he eviscerates them. And in all honesty, it's nationalities. It's about our nation states and our survival as a people. But see, somehow in this whole, I don't know how to explain it other than everybody's social signals. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. This is what the deep state and the shadow government does. They want to push a president to war because honestly, all of our nations are bankrupt at this point. And what's the best way to clean the books? Look to World War I. Look to World War II. We've done this shit before. And then we always have the scapegoats. Oh, it was the Jews who were being killed by the Germans. There's always scapegoats. Do you think they won't say the Americans and the Brits are the scapegoats next time? Your thoughts?
Yeah, we are like you say, the scapegoats. It's easy to point the finger, especially the Americans. You know, I mean, we still get shit from the British Empire and what we did to India and what we did to three-quarters of the globe all those years ago. But it's sort of like the fashionable thing to hate America. Even as an American, you know, it's fashionable thing. Certainly in sort of like further education, in the majority of your universities, it's fashionable to be seen to be far left, to be anti-fascist. That's not cool. Everybody's fucking anti-fascist. You know, nobody turns around and says, I'm a pro-fascist, I'm pro-Nazi. You know, I want the persecution of gay people, of Mexicans, of immigrants, of Jews, of black people, of fucking yellow people, whatever. You know, everybody's fucking anti-fascist. It's just that we're not cunts about it. You know, we don't have to walk around with black masks on, bike chaining people around the fucking head because they have a different opinion of what we're screaming at people. You know what I mean? And we're not
Well,
discussing people. But what I'm saying, it's the fashionable thing to be seen doing that. You know, where and there is an element of deep state to it, shadow government, and on both sides of the fence. You know, and let's be honest, this social disruption, it is means to an end for somebody or some people or some corporation or some body of government. Otherwise it wouldn't be happening as much as it is because you've got people pushing it in from the shadows, and it's the same over here. Although it's not as bad as it is in the States, we still got Antifa here, but these Antifa lunatics tend to be hanging around London. We don't tend to see them up the north of England, for example. There is people up here like that, but not in the numbers that you see people walking around like Portland, Oregon.
right.
That place is an absolute. I was watching something not so long ago.
Shithole.
A fucking toilet of a place.
Yeah.
Portland, Oregon sounds like London. It's just a toilet of a place. It's just toxic. People lawlessness. The police can't get a handle on it, and if they do want to get a handle on it, they're being pulled back by a very left-wing, hardline sort of political sway. You know, we don't want you to go out there and crack these people's heads and bring law and order.
Same with Philly. Philly was there's a video out there. People want to look it up. Everybody wants me to give links on shit. Look it up yourself, man. I honestly don't have the time nor patience, but you'll find it, where he came out doing a jig, the mayor did. The same one that was like, why is this going on? And he was like, oh, we're a sanctuary city. And his secretary shakes her head and is like, oh, yeah, this is badass. Yeah, no, you're destroying your own people. On the picture I have right now is me and, as you know, in Panjshir, in Masood's tomb. This is Masood's tomb. There's a big whole thing. If you guys can all look it up, that was me able to give a prayer, of course, a Christian prayer, for a gentleman I respect, the Lion of the Panjshir. I know he's an attention whore, Masood. I know a lot about Masood. So does RYP and many other people. But the point is, he died the day before 9/11, and we can all get into that discussion another time. But to kill him off was to definitely take away an asset. And that's my two thoughts. Your thought?
Yeah. No, I won't dwell on that too much, brother, because obviously, again, it's for another show. But I think things would have gone a lot smoother and a lot differently if he hadn't been blown up by Al Qaeda. But going back to, these sanctuary cities, it's always the ones standing at the podium that are saying this is a sanctuary city that don't have to worry about the rising crime rate in his neighborhood, the drug use, the defecation on the streets, because the people that are claiming this is a sanctuary city, or the people that make these decisions, are the ones that usually lived in gate communities that have got the monetary means to not have to see these quotation marks dirty brown people shitting on the streets or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's what pisses me off. It's like San Francisco. I know San Francisco is nowhere near as bad as Portland, Oregon. But again, you just need to go down to London to see how sort of, I won't say useless, but how much the hands are tied of the law enforcement officers down there.
Yeah, but does London have, like Portland and San Francisco, a brown map where they have to tell everybody where the feces is?
No, I don't think so. But to be honest, the entire place is a fucking toilet. But saying that, there is certain places that you go to in London, and you're looking around and you're thinking, where am I? Because I am not in the capital city of the United Kingdom because of the amount of foreign people that live there. Now, don't get me wrong, foreign people in your country is not necessarily a bad thing, but as you can see, and you again, I'm not going to go into links. I find that when people say, "Oh, show me links, show me links, show me links," it's for a nefarious reason. It's just they can try and rubbish the links that you give them. So this is where you're getting your information. Find your own information. You choose where your information comes from. All I'd say is be selective about that information and don't take it from one source. But if you go onto any source possible and you go onto EU immigration, for example, you can see boatloads of fighting age males getting off boats with mobile phones, in nice trainers, in nice clothes, just running into countries. Now, what they're doing there, they haven't come from a war zone straight there. They've gone through X amount of countries to get there. And it's because of the soft governments. And you can see it happening in places like Portland and places like that, where it's a sanctuary city. Then all you do is you bring in a mass crime rate to the area. You bring in the chance of low-paid employment to your lower-class citizens, naturalized citizens, like native citizens, like the average Joe American. All of a sudden, he's now out of a job because his employer can now pay this person who's just got off a bus or a boat or a plane or whatever, $3 less an hour. You know what I mean? And then saying that, all price houses, the house of your properties now fucking falls on its ass because nobody wants to live there. But the cunt that's made the decision is still living in his ivory tower. He's still going to work in his chauffeur-driven BMW or his chauffeur-driven Mercedes or whatever he's going, pulling in X amount of 6 figures a year. And when shit does get to him,
and he has a guy like you or I who protects him.
That makes sure that no one's shitting on his lawn.
Or his family or him will never have a touch of a glove on them. That's the reality of this. And I mean, I love my work. You love your work. But the point is, that's why they hire us. And we think outside the box. We think how to counter anything we can think of. And that's why people hire us, honestly. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's because people like us and the circles that we're moving, or more importantly, the places that we've worked, we've gained an ability to spot when something's going to go wrong. Not going wrong, going to go wrong. Because there's an old adage that we used to use, certainly in Northern Ireland, was the absence of the normal and the presence of the abnormal. You know when something's gone wrong. Where the pattern of life in that area is changed all of a sudden for some kind of reason. Chances are people like that tend not to notice these things. And it's that ability to sense when something's going wrong. So it's difficult to explain, but we've all got that extra sense, where there's that electricity in the air and you don't know why, but you just know that there's something going down. That's why they hire people like us. It's because we know when something's going to go wrong. Also, we know how to deal with certain situations, and it's that buffer zone between your principle and the situation, in quotation marks, the situation. Some guy shitting on his lawn. He doesn't want to. His 6-year-old daughter doesn't want to walk to the huge patio windows they've got in their fucking $2.6 million mansion and see someone shitting on the lawn. And they don't want to see someone breaking into the car. They don't want someone breaking into their home. And that's why they've got people like us. But saying that, they're the ones that will never have to suffer that. Where the people that have put this fucking idiot into office are the ones that are suffering. But again, you can also say do they deserve it?
Right.
But not everybody. Not everybody voted for Trump. You know what I mean? A lot of them voted for Hillary. Now, if Hillary had got into power, would it say, well, you deserve it, you deserve it, you deserve it? No, of course you're not, because a large swathe of the population didn't vote for this fucking idiot. So, but everybody's now sucking from the same tit. My house price has fallen on its fucking ass. I've got some dude shitting in my garden who threatened my daughter with a dirty needle. Some guy down there's just been arrested for making fucking suicide vests. This guy is a known sex offender where he's come from, but we can't do anything about it because, it's just absolute craziness, mate.
Well, here's the thing. Anyways, I will talk about this offline, but there was a lot of things in play on the last thing. Now, at the final thing, I really want to talk to people about, quote unquote, back in the day. You remember what I'm talking about when I say this? The men in black and what we know as cleaners. And not saying anything about either of us, just you can't do the skin trade without meeting these types of people. And your thoughts on it, and I'll mute myself, and you can talk on, and I will interject if I want to add something, if that's okay, brother. Honestly,
Yeah, that's fine, mate. That's fine. Yeah, there's elements of not just your government, but there's elements of obviously your armed forces, your law enforcement, etc., that are paid to do, let's say, extracurricular work. Now, I'm not preaching to the ignorant. I know everybody who does listen to these knows what we're on about. And certainly since, especially on the war and terror, it's sort of pushed to the forefront a lot more, what with black operations and things like that. But we've got to think of the stuff from sort of the Cold War, where you had agents, assets, whatever we want to call them, from both sides,
yes,
plying their trade on various different levels, not just espionage, sabotage, assassination, and things like that. And there's elements of our special forces now in 2019
and our law enforcement that cover shit up. It happens all the time. I've seen it. You've seen it.
Yeah. That let's be honest. I would dare say this is more prevalent certainly in law enforcement, in certain areas where they are paid the dollar, the pound, by their government, by their regions, by their police department, but they're also getting money from elsewhere to do extracurricular activities. When we're at war, certainly the military can dip its finger into this. When I say the military, I don't mean the military as a whole. I'm talking 1, 2, 3 people, a platoon of people, a company of people, even a battalion of people. You've got to look at certain things that have gone on. And I want to say certain things you can look at where units have gone off reservation, where you've got like the My Lai massacre in Vietnam. Another good one for the readers, the listeners, if they haven't read it, a book called Tiger Force, about 327th Infantry out in Vietnam. Tiger Force, they were basically just told to go and fucking kill as many people as they could, free fire zones and all that stuff. They were the officials, non-official cleaners.
And you also had, if you think about it, back in the day, there's a book called The Devil's Battalion, and it was a French Foreign Legion battalion that anybody who is a mercenary, and dude, we're going to have to do another show on the mercenary contractor thing because we're going to go deep into this, and I just don't, I'm not ready to do it tonight because what we do know is there's a book out there called The Devil's Brigade. And there were a bunch of SS dudes that were put into the French Foreign Legion for the Indochina War in Vietnam. And that is what set the pace for the CIA at that time. And and it actually is what the sad opera, you know what sad is. We're both very sad sometimes. The point is, that is the nebulous beginnings, and there is a reality to it. And the difference is everybody has their masturbational fantasy, but until you've actually been on the ground in places and seen how things work, I'll never forget. You remember back in the day, certain people I've worked with, and I'll even call one out right now, Mike Seiner and Trish DeGenero. She works for the UPO. He's the mayor of Seaville. I told both of them, I said, look, You guys are taking this real serious that you're writing papers and everybody that you work with Democracy International are thinking the same thing. I said we're going to throw everything away at the end of this. What you write, nobody will ever see. And they're like, "Oh well, whatever. You're a musclehead. You're a dumbass." And I was like, "Okay, cool. We're good." And they both came out to go out that night with another person, and they saw us all throwing away boxes. Guess what those boxes had, brah? What they wrote.
Yep.
It's retarded. We have raised a generation of retardation.
It's sorry, I was sitting a mouthful of beer. I've got to keep myself lubricated.
Good man.
Yeah. Again, it's that ignorance of the guy on the ground doesn't know the full picture. The chances are the guy on the ground might not know the full picture, but he can see the clear picture, the picture what is actually happening on the ground. Might not see the entire strategic goal of whatever the fucking's being worked towards, but does he need to? Because at the end of the day, who can affect that? It's not the people that have set these strategic goals. It's the people that enact tactical goals at ground level that enable these strategic goals to be made. Now that goes across every industry. That goes from the guy on the ground clearing compounds in Afghanistan, of the guy kicking doors down in New York City, clearing out organised crime for the NYPD, to banks and businesses. They've all got strategic goals, but these goals can't be met by the guy on the ground, the guy behind the till, the person putting the lid on the yogurts, whatever you want to be, you want to go there. So, and again, we're breeding more and more people that want to be part of the decision making and not a part of the doing, if you know what I mean. And that's where we're actually lacking now. But again, we can trickle back to the Antifa, that shit there, where everybody wants to be a decision maker. Everybody wants to enact change by saying and not doing, if you know what I mean.
And not knowing the reality of the situation on the ground.
Mm.
And that's, I think, the bigger square picture. I mean, I saw an MMA guy today, I think it was, this morning, who was like, these dudes couldn't, and dude, we're both older dudes. And, you know, we've done our business just like, we go back a long ways, that's all I'll say. And we may not be in the best of health, or may be. It's up to you to decide and figure it out. But no games are played. We'll talk to you, and we'll be... I don't want to put the name out. I'll just say KMC at one time said the best dudes on the planet unless you make them angry. And that's the funniest thing, is that when we have these discussions, we both know we're the best dudes on the planet. We're nice. We don't want to fight. But, well, you and I both know what we do. Yeah. Yeah. When it happens, and we don't want to see that anywhere on the planet. And that's the truth.
But I think as you get older, there's sort of more safeguards to that button. There's covers and keys and passcodes to actually get to it. But, you know, and that only comes with experience and patience and, you know, hardships, that old blood, sweat and tears mantra, you know, where that switch is a lot harder to press than it was when we were a young, fiery Marine, soldier, law enforcement, whatever, you know what I mean? But again, it's the...
You can say it on my page, when we're young cunts.
When we're young cunts, yeah. Full of piss and vinegar, wanting to just fight the world and make the world a better place, you know. But it's the guys and the girls on the ground that enact the change, not the people shouting in the streets or the people that are making decisions in offices, air-conditioned offices, air-conditioned ops rooms, air-conditioned meeting rooms, palaces, chambers of Congress.
You're right. We're the cleaners. We clean it up after it. Yeah. And that's the whole thing about the Men in Black. That was my point, and I'm glad you brought it to that point. When you saw Will Smith, here comes Men in Black, all UFO bullshit. Nah. You know what it was? Is the Men in Black are actually the guys who have to clean up after the morons do the shit they want to do. And we're talking, when I say morons, I want to be very specific. The politicos that make a mess. And it doesn't even have to be politicos. I mean, mafia. All these fucking people have... Bankers. Yeah, bankers. Oh, fuck. Don't get me started on that shit. Or Hollywood. Look, if you don't see a correlation on that last video they're trying to push, or the show they're trying to push about hunting, I can't remember what they call it. I think it's The Hunt. If you don't see the correlation on hunting deplorables in a foreign country and drugging them and all the weird shit they did, dude, that I see so many lines that I'm like, I just don't believe shit anymore. I think everything is to set people up. Honestly, that's my thoughts.
It's always someone trying to get something on you, either as an individual, a demographic of people, be it whites, blacks, Chinese, Koreans, Hispanics, Republican, Democrats, gay, straight, bisexual, poly, whatever you want to call it.
Set you up.
Yeah, it's always someone wants to get something over on somebody else. The right do it, the left do it, we do it. You know, it's power. You know, it's power. If you can out fuck someone, you're going to be the swinging dick. You're going to be King Dick on the block. You know, we've got this shit on you, and again, it can lead back to the Epstein case where he had so much shit on people. It's ignorant to think that there was an extra hand in his demise, you know.
Oh, he was killed.
Did it put the rope around his neck? We don't know. Was the rope made available? And I'm not saying it's a rope, but this is just me, you know what I mean, putting it out there.
Rope, bed sheet,
lace, whatever, hammer, fucking poison, whatever. Yeah. Whatever, however he died, with the means, was the media to take his own life either allowed to be taken in with him, or was it placed there? You know, there's all different things. There's extra hands in everything that we do, be it media, be it shadow government, be it our own government, be it the people that we work with, the people that we work for. Everybody's got their own agenda.
The secondary coroner's investigation, the MEs, medical examiners, it wasn't done by her because she said, I don't know what killed him. Figured that one out, right, bro? But here's the funny thing is, if he hung himself, it would have been this bone that would have broken. But if he was strangled, it would have been this. So it was a sheet, and of course, if you're on suicide watch, which he wasn't, and he also complained to his attorneys that he was not on suicide watch because he was with a cop that was a rogue cop. Honestly, this dude's a beast. Look at his picture, bro. I know you've been out of touch because you're working. But look at this dude's picture. And he got attacked. And then all of a sudden, when he finally did die, there was a couple bones broken that wouldn't have broken if he hung himself. It was from strangulation, which you and I both know what we're talking about, and we don't need to get into specifics. But the point is everybody in there was like, breathe, as these two BOP cops, or they are 6Cs, so they are considered law enforcement, federal law enforcement, were sleeping for 3 hours And the cameras were not on him, which I understand that process, because then you become. There's something I did a show on a long time ago. And what that was showing people how prisons used to be built, to where prisoners didn't know if they were being looked at or not. It was deemed by the Supreme Court to be not right, okay? It's a certain technique. I'm not getting into it and talking about it. But they had every way, and all of a sudden all the cameras go blank for 3 hours now. 3 hours. Had to be 3 hours. Because nobody saw anybody walking into his thing or coming out. And those guys happened to be overworked and sleeping. And I'd love to have blood tests done on those guys that fell asleep and see if they were drugged. I honestly want to see drug tests on everybody on that day, because something happened and nobody's buying it. And this is the one thing that has brought the left and the right together. Nobody is believing this story. They have lied to us for so long, and I really like Attorney General Barr, but unless he brings people to justice and figures this shit out, guess what? That's the degradation of this nation, is nobody's going to buy fuck all forever. Honestly, in my nation, that will destroy this country.
It'll certainly be a catalyst to something. You know, because people know that there's just too many ifs, there's too many whats, there's too many questions to this guy offering himself, you know, when he had too much, I won't say too much to live for, but too much to get off his chest before prosecution, or before he chose to take his own life. Because I believe he would have taken his own life anyway, because people like that tend to be not good outside of a comfort zone. Now, when I say outside of a comfort zone, I'm not talking in a big meeting room doing the hard sell on a load of CEOs and stakeholders. I'm talking he's been put into a prison population now where people, even if he didn't do these nefarious crimes, would singling him out just because of the background and where he's come from.
He would have been used and abused and served like hell. To go back to the old 80s song, the old 80s rap, he would have been fucked. But the point is, he wasn't that guy at that time. No. Now, with this being said, Baz, I want to thank you. Stay on the line. We'll talk afterwards about certain things. I cannot believe how epic this show was, because we fronted a lot of shit. And the folks listening, you better listen. You can laugh with the intro. Well, you're cunts if you laugh, because you don't know. Baz and I actually have done this for how many years, Baz, for you? You're
25 years.
I have 32. We've been doing this quite a long time. You think you know more than me and him combined? You'd be hard-pressed. And with that being said, thank you guys for stopping by Kaiser's Castle. I'm going to lead out with Fredo's song. I'm not going to let it all play out. It's 2 minutes and 20 seconds. I'll just play a little bit of it. But the point is, Baz, mute, and I will play this out. And this is where Fredo came from. Biatches, the Godfather.
My father
Have a good one.
Many things. He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies close.
Hey, friends, thanks for stopping by Kaiser's Castle. Feel free to finish your coffee, tea, soda, or adult libation. I'm rolling up the drawbridge so I can have an offline conversation with Baz. And I really appreciate you guys stopping by. But I'm done. And with that being said, Chef out.